Hi there. How are you? Did you enjoy a weekend of college football without Ohio State? Well, neither did I. But there were some games, and we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. Welcome to the BBD Network. It is the Brother Buckeye Broadcasting Network. I am your Brother Doug in Buckeyedom, Buckeye Nation. I'm a fan. I'm also a 40-year radio broadcaster, and I do this for fun because ever since 1996, I've been posting my opinion on message boards. Yep, I was one of the very first people, along with another buck, to participate on what they used to call just message boards. And the message board that I was following ended up dying with Ohio State's national championship run in 1998. Yeah, I think it was 1998. And, there was a certain number of us, maybe a couple dozen people that were, trying this new thing out called the Information Superhighway. And there was this one place you could go, really. And then the guy that hosted the board disappeared after Ohio State lost to Michigan State in 1998. And there was just nobody there anymore. So I hope he didn't hurt himself. But the group that was among, and I can't even remember what it was called. I do know, in addition to another buck, there was 8 Point Buck. And we moved over to the O Zone. And us and a bunch of other people were at the O Zone, which still exists and still kind of looks like it always has, and was there until about 2001-ish, maybe 2002. And one day, the person who created Bucknuts invited a bunch of us to start Bucknuts. And I was one of the first dozen posters there, along with another buck and a bunch of other people. There was a guy named Huckle Buckeye, and Buck 68. But where is Buck 68? He would write these posts that you had to either be a genius to figure out or something altogether different, but you could just never figure out what he was talking about. Nice guy. I actually talked to him on the phone once. And, but boy, those were, how many years ago was that? We're talking about 25 years ago, at least 23. And we all moved over to what was Bucknuts, and then it became Scout. And then it became eventually kind of what it is, which is, Ohio State 247. We still refer to it as Bucknuts. And that's where I'm there. That's where I am most of the time, chatting, as it were, with a bunch of you. And I appreciate you being here tonight and the 2 or 3 times that I do this each week. I want to say a special thanks to everybody who has been praying for my brother Dennis. He is doing better, still in the hospital, still very weak, but in pretty good spirits, all in all. And it was really touch and go. What I did not know at the time that I posted that I was asking for you to pray for him was that they had used the paddles on him because he was going into AFib. And that I didn't know about that until yesterday. Kind of scary stuff. So hopefully he'll get home. He's a big Buckeye fan, and keep those prayers coming. And I do thank you, and he does too. I hope you enjoyed the picture that I posted on Ohio State 247. So let's talk about what happened this past weekend. These were the big surprises, sort of, kind of, but I actually got a lot of these right. For example, I picked Oregon State to cover. In other words, I thought Utah would win, but I thought Oregon State would cover. As it turned out, Oregon State won 21-7. So I was really not surprised that you would have won the bet had you listened to me by going with Oregon State. I just didn't think they would beat Utah by 2 touchdowns. That was surprising. The Georgia-Auburn game. I told you, not impressed with Georgia so far. I thought Georgia would win, but that Auburn would keep it close. That's exactly what happened. The Michigan-Nebraska game, that was probably one of the biggest surprises. I thought Nebraska would give Michigan a better run for their money. They just didn't. It just surprises me because you would think first game on the road for the Michiganders and, that home crowd. And it looked like Nebraska had won a couple of games and they had things going in their favor. They just didn't show up. That surprised me. That was a big surprise. Texas, Kansas, the fact that Texas had no trouble with Kansas, a little surprising. Washington, Arizona, only surprising in that Arizona made a game of it. Arizona plays USC this week, so we'll see if Arizona can give USC a game. So this was the first game where Washington looked mortal. They didn't score nearly as many points as they usually do, and Arizona scored quite a few. Washington gave up 32 points the week before, gave up about 4 touchdowns Saturday. So and that's the problem. It's kind of always been the problem in the Pac-12 outside of Stanford when they were good, is that they don't play defense out there. And the type of player that they have, great at the skilled positions offensively, they're not as, and this has been the beef with West Coast football, is that they're not as physical and not even as big, or maybe that they don't take football as seriously, at least in the trenches, which is, if you're going to win a national championship, you got to be really stout in the trenches. USC isn't. Washington doesn't look it. Oregon, more so. So we'll see. USC, the Colorado game, again, I said USC would win. I thought Colorado would cover. That's exactly what happened. I didn't think it was going to be 48-41. So you would have won money if you would have taken my advice on that one. Kentucky, Florida, I just kind of floored that Kentucky won by that margin. Now, I did say that the home team would win the game, and the home team won the game. So I was right on that one too. The Clemson-Syracuse game was kind of surprising because Syracuse was undefeated. Clemson had no trouble with Syracuse. So I think I got that one wrong. And then Purdue, Illinois, 44-19. Is the bloom already off Bert's rose? Maybe. I said Bert on purpose because that's what we call him. We don't call him Brett. We ought to call him Butthead, Butthead, Beavis and Butthead, because he looks like one of those characters, if you think about it. But don't think too hard. All right. So I'm going to give you my picks. I'm going to rate the Big Ten teams. Then I'm going to give you the rankings on, my top 14 in the country. It's probably going to surprise you, and you're probably going to think I'm a homer, but there's a method behind the madness. All right. Starting at number 14, Indiana. Yeah. Coach Allen fires somebody. He threw somebody under the bus. Threw the offensive guy under the bus. I don't think the offense is the problem, Coach Allen. I think it's the defense, which you're supposed to be involved in. This is it for Coach Allen. This is going to be it with the Big Ten becoming the Big 18. They've got to be better. They have to be better. And they're not. And we've seen the best of what Indiana is ever going to be. And it was when they had Michael Penix. They haven't had him the last couple of years, and that's why they suck. And it's not going to change. Sorry, I like Coach Allen, but got to go. start fresh, get somebody in there who can just do a better job. Speaking of needing to do a better job, what happened in what we talked about Nebraska? Really disappointed that they didn't show up for the Michigan game. I've got them at number 13. As bad as Illinois is playing, I'm going to put them at 12. I mean, these bottom three, just so bad. Illinois, you were supposed to be a contender. You're a pretender, and you're awful. You're number 12. I've got Northwestern ahead of you because it was 27-13 as the fourth quarter was starting. Penn State scored 2 late touchdowns. The last touchdown shouldn't have counted at all. I mean, because it was just stupid. And the Northwestern quarterback went out. If the Northwestern quarterback had stayed in, I still think Penn State would have won by a couple of touchdowns, but it wouldn't have been 41-13. So Northwestern, I kind of like you. I like this new guy, Braun. I'm going to put you at number 11. Michigan State, what am I supposed to do with this? It's so bad. This conference outside of the top 6 or 7 teams is terrible. Michigan State played Iowa close, but Iowa lost to Penn State the week before, 31-0? Oh, and the Michigan State NIL thing is blown up. What a mess. I mean, but of course, Michigan State has been known for messes. Historically, they were put on probation in the 1970s. When they were good, they got in trouble. Then in the 80s, for a while, they were kind of good, and then they got in trouble. When D'Antonio was there, they actually were pretty good, and they didn't get into any trouble. But since he's been gone, this Mel Tucker thing is a nightmare, and the NIL thing. In case you didn't hear that, this Spartan Dog NIL that existed, where they were supporting all the scholarship players, they have suspended the support of 80 of those scholarship players. They're only supporting 5 of those players now. All right. So Michigan State, we're putting you at 10 because at least you've won a couple of games, and you were 16 all with Iowa in, at Kinnick. That counts for something. Minnesota at number 9, the biggest disappointment in the Big Ten this year. I've got them at 9. They host Michigan, the little brown jug. I think there's going to be a lot of brown on that field. I don't know if it's going to have anything to do with the jug. Minnesota has a really good running back. He didn't play. Minnesota won, beat Louisiana 34-25. I haven't watched the game yet. I have it recorded. From what I understand, is Louisiana looked like they were going to win that thing until it kind of turned around at the end. I've got Minnesota at number 9. I would love nothing more than the Fighting Flex to beat Michigan, but I'm not holding my breath. Okay, number 8. We're going to put Iowa there. As long as the Ferences are running the show in that state, they're never going to come close to winning a Big Ten championship. Never again. They're 8 in a 14-team league. In a 18-team league, just drop them down 12 or 4 spots. So Iowa would be at best the 12th best football team in the Big Ten if there was 4 other teams from the West Coast were in it. Just think about that. Indiana would be 18. Nebraska would be 17. Illinois would be 16. Northwestern would be 15. Michigan State would be 14. Minnesota would be 13. Iowa would be 12. Oh, boy. Yeah, they won. Cade McNamara is out. Really, I have no faith in 8 through 14 to get to a bowl game. Maybe Iowa and Minnesota get to 6-6. Maybe. I've got Purdue at 7 because they beat the bejeebies out of Illinois. And the difference this week was Ryan Walters, the defensive genius that Illinois is missing because he's the head coach at Purdue. He actually called the defense, made a big difference. Illinois only scored 19 points. The Purdue offense scored 44. So I've got, the next 7 I have some faith in. Purdue at 7. I've got Rutgers at 6. Who would have thunk it? They're 4-1. They go to Madison this week. And the Badgers are my number 5 team. So my number 6 and number 5 team in the conference, they face off. I don't think it's a given Wisconsin wins. Wisconsin's only thrown 2 touchdown passes so far. I think Wisconsin will win, but it wouldn't bother me at all if Rutgers did. But I like both those coaches. They're both got Buckeye lineage with Schiano and Fickle. Should be a good contest. I hope it is. At number 4, coming into the shoe, it is 5-0 Maryland. They're really good. Their defense is improved. Their offense is stellar. I think their quarterback is going to be taken in the first 3 rounds, maybe round 2, if he continues with the kind of season he's had so far. So I'm saying Maryland at number 4. I hope they leave being number 14 because I hope Ohio State stomps them, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a contest much like the road game was last year. I got Penn State at 3. Penn State at 3. They didn't look that great. Their defense looks really good. Their offense is still a little clunky. Aller, way overhyped so far. And their running backs have not been breaking big runs. So the offense is serviceable. The defense is really good. I've got Penn State at 3. Michigan at number 2. Yeah, I've got Michigan at number 2. They won 45-7. I think they've won 5 games. They haven't beat anybody with a pulse yet. So I'm going to put them I can't put them ahead of Ohio State. Ohio State's beaten Notre Dame, who won a big game over Duke. And I've got Ohio State at number 1 in the Big Ten. All right. Now, the top 14 nationally, I've got North Carolina at 14, Washington State 13, Oklahoma at 12, Alabama at 11, USC in their non-existent defense at 10. I got Florida State at 9. This idea that somehow they should be number 1, where are they getting that? They barely beat a bad Boston College team, and they also struggled to win another game. So I got them at 9. I don't think they are a national championship contender. I've got Notre Dame up to 8. I think they showed some resiliency by beating Duke on the road. Yeah, I mean, they've got a pretty good defense, and their offense, when they get going, running the ball, they're pretty good. So, yeah, I've got them at 8. I got Oregon at 7, and I think that's kind of low. I think people are sleeping on Oregon. They've got a great offense, and their defense has been good. I could put Oregon all the way up to number 3, and I don't think that would be overrating them. But for now, I've got them at number 7. Texas at 6, another team that people want to put way up there. It's like, why? What have they done? They beat Alabama when, this quarterback that Alabama has was, running for his life, and he still can't throw the football, but I like him. He's a nice point guard. But yeah, the Alabama team that Texas beat is not going to be a team that's going to be in the top 5 when it's all said and done. And they might not even be in the top 10. So I got Texas at 6. I've got Washington at 5, but I'm not as sold on Washington as I was because they gave up 4 touchdowns this past Saturday. They gave up 32 points the week before. Again, you got to have a defense. Ohio State knows that. It's why Ohio State didn't win the national championship last year because they didn't have a defense. They've got one this year. So I'm going to put Washington at 5, subject to change. Number 4 is Penn State. I've got Georgia at 3. They've yet to do anything impressive. They've yet to beat anybody of consequence, and they're getting by, with the hair of their chin. I don't think they don't have a signature win, and they haven't looked impressive. So I've got them at 3. I've got Michigan at 2, and I've got Ohio State at 1. Now I know some people are saying blasphemy. You're a homer. Well, Ohio State's rated number 3 in one poll and number 4 in the other. And Ohio State beat somebody. And to, stay in this lofty air that I've got them at, they're going to have to beat a good Maryland team. And eventually they're going to have to beat a good Wisconsin team, Penn State, Michigan. So, for them to stay number 1 in my book, they're going to have to, and to stay number 3 and number 4 with the coaches and the Associated Press writers. They're going to have to win. So they're going to have to prove it. So I've got Michigan at 2, Ohio State at 1, which means that 3 of the top 4 teams in the country, I believe, are from the Big Ten. Washington, a future Big Ten foe, or a member, is at 5. So that's 4 of the top 5. Oregon at 7. So that's the only 2 teams that aren't Big Ten teams by next year are Texas at 6 and Georgia at 3, because I've got Oregon at 7 and then Notre Dame, FSU, and then USC. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 10 teams are Big Ten teams, essentially. So what do you think? Big games coming up this Saturday. What a huge weekend. Ohio State, Maryland. Huge, big game. Oklahoma, Texas. Big game. LSU and Missouri, both ranked. Big game. Rutgers and Wisconsin. Big in that we're going to find out, is Rutgers going to be, headed to a bowl game and clinching a bowl berth before Halloween? And we're going to find out whether, how afraid or concerned should we be about with, that eventual game with Wisconsin and Madison. If they destroy Rutgers, then the threat level rises. But if Rutgers wins or it's a close contest, then maybe not so much. Washington State, UCLA should be a really good game. Both teams have just one loss. Alabama, Texas A&M could be a good one. Texas A&M won last week, so did Alabama. Syracuse, North Carolina. Maybe Syracuse bounces back. North Carolina is undefeated at number 14. Syracuse is 4-1. If that would be, if you want teams to be eliminated, rooting for Syracuse over North Carolina would not be a bad idea. Kentucky, Georgia. That is a game I'm really looking forward to. Kind of like the LSU Ole Miss game. I think this one, I don't know if it's going to be a shootout because Georgia doesn't score a lot of points, but Kentucky can win this one. I really think if they believe they can win, they can win. But will they believe it? Big game there. Michigan, Minnesota. When I saw this one on the early schedule, I had Minnesota winning this one. Minnesota's been very disappointing. Michigan should not have a problem with Minnesota, the way they've looked and the way the Gophers have looked. But come on, Minnesota. Come on. Do something. Make me proud. Make me look like at least I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. It would help if Chris Altman-Bell was healthy. I don't think he's played at all this year, has he? All right. I can't read my writing. Who is that? I'm going to have to come back to that one because I cannot read that. Fresno State, Wyoming. Fresno State, it's a top 25 team. They struggled versus Nevada. Wyoming has a good record. So, Fresno State is vying to be that highest rated group of 5 team to get a New Year's Day bowl. So important game for Fresno and for Wyoming for that matter. And then Arizona, USC. I don't know. USC has not looked great the last 2 weeks. Arizona could happen. Wouldn't mind Arizona knocking off USC. I'm just not sure what this one is. I cannot read my writing. It's, is it Nebraska? Nope. I've got the worst handwriting in the world. I had pneumonia when I was in 3rd grade. For 2 weeks, I missed school, and that's when they were introducing cursive. I blame my inability to do anything much more than create a stick figure on the fact that I had pneumonia, which may explain just about everything else that's gone wrong in my life. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? If you like joining me for this stream of consciousness, 2 or 3 times each week, please subscribe, like, share, because otherwise I'm just kind of talking to myself, which I do a lot of anyway, and my wife is awfully concerned. Just saying. Hey, thanks again for praying for my brother Dennis, and we'll keep you up to date on how things are going with him. I will do my weekly picks, whether I do that tomorrow or the day after. It'll be interesting what Ryan Day and Jim Knowles and the players have to say. We'll let you know what they had to say as well, and I'll give you my picks. And this is a big week. It's Ohio State, Maryland. Maryland is for real. It's time for us to slap them in the face a little bit, bring them down to earth. At least that's what I hope happens. All right. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Go Bucks.